Come on, baby, light my fire. Trying to set the night on fire. Fire, moon, Aries, full moon. At 6 degrees of Aries, the full moon is happening tonight. It's Friday, the 29th of September, 9:58 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And there's a full moon in the sky tonight. So I want to dive in and look at this full moon and illuminate some of the energetics of it, if we think about it from that perspective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the chart. But first, before we go into the full moon, let's go back to the new moon. The big main story for the new moon was the alignment to Uranus. Now, I've said in a previous video that the next 6 months, all new moons are in alignment to Uranus. Uranus is upheaval, change, liberation, sudden, unexpected shift, turn of events. Uranus is the first of the transformational generational unconscious aspects or planets, and Uranus deals in our higher collective mind. So it can deal in revelation, insight, awareness, things shifting. What Uranus also does is it liberates stuck energy. So this is a really big theme, and now we're bringing that theme of liberating stuck energy into what? Into the realm of relationship. The interesting thing is, and why relationship? Because we've got an Aries full moon, and the sun's going to be in Libra, the sign ruled by Mars and Venus. The signs ruled by Mars and Venus. The nodal axis now has shifted into Aries Libra, war and peace, self and other, what I want, and balancing the needs of other people. So this full moon leads us into the solar eclipse on the 14th, 15th of October. Interesting dynamics that we're moving into. You can feel the shifts, you can feel the change. Now, when we bring the idea of change or liberating stuck energy in our relationships, the first relationship I want you to think of is the one you have with yourself. All relationships are a representation, a reinforcement, a validation of the relationship that we have with ourselves. And are we whole? Now, the Uranus trining the sun on the new moon brings a little bit of a shift into our physical awareness around where we may be out of balance or out of alignment, where things need to change. We could expect the unexpected, but we can also work with that Taurus Uranus and the Virgo new moon energy being earth energy. We can also work with this energy of free and liberation in the physical realm. And it's going to come down to our body and our habits, our routines, the things that we're doing, right? Because the things we do repetitively that shape us, our habits and our routines, they become who we are. Do our habits and routines reinforce the person that we are becoming? And that new moon was an opportunity to start to make some shifts. Now, I'm excited. Uranus energy is a lot about excitement. I'm excited about the next 6 months because there's going to be instability in this change energy. And most people are like, oh, what's that mean? What's going to happen? What's going to go on? It's like, yeah, fucking oath it's change, because things need to change. But the change happens internally first before the outside. So the change is going to happen now on an internal perspective for a vast majority of people in the collective. There's going to be this internal shifting, this questioning, this awakening of revelation, of insight, of download, of, questioning the status quo, rebelling against conformity. And it's going to happen on an internal level. And you're going to fight who? You're going to fight because the Aries full moon, right, is this warrior energy. You're going to fight the lower self, where the lower self has become stuck and got a grip on who you are and what you're doing. And you're going to fight to liberate yourself from that, which is amazing, because as we individually liberate ourselves, as we shift and change our consciousness, as we start to become more of our warrior quality and energy, as we learn how to balance ourselves and find our inner peace, hello, Libra scales, then the world that we live in is going to reflect that, which means it's going to go through a lot of change. It's got a lot of upheaval. I really perceive that the next 6 months are going to be a building point towards a crescendo or a tipping point, which is going to be the catalyst for great change as we move into sort of May, June, July of next year. I'm going to speak more on that in relation to Uranus. Next year, we have Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Remember, Jupiter is a planet of expansion, and it brings a expansive energy to whatever it sort of interacts with. And Uranus is upheaval, freedom, liberation, change, sudden, unexpected. The liberator of stuck energy. Things are fixed, things are stuck, things need to change. Welcome in Uranus energy. We're often complacent. We're in the unhappy comfort zone. We're, a little bit lazy and we stay stuck. So Uranus helps to shift and change. The thing I want you to remember at the moment is that the change that you want to see in this world, you have to be it. You have to be it. This is the realization. This new moon in Virgo is the realization you're here for you to change yourself. That is the only constant in nature, is change. You want to keep pushing the envelope, pushing the boundaries, pushing past the conformity, the idea of who you're supposed to be, and be liberating yourself constantly and evolving and adapting and changing. And this is the embodiment of that coming through now. We've had some unexpected things happen geopolitically around the world. In Australia, unexpected resignation of a Premier of Victoria, Daniel Andrews, stepping down. So one sense that's good, right? Long overdue. But another sense is like, okay, what have they replaced this puppet with, right? Because even though he was the face of the last 3 years in relation to the Novid drama and bullshit and the mandates and the tyranny, he was definitely a puppet that was installed. We don't have elections, we have selections. Okay, just remember that. We have selections. They're handpicked and selected, and they're propagandized and marketed in a certain way. And all an election does is tests the temperature of the collective. Where is the temperature, right? If you think about what this system does, is it divides and conquers, or it creates imbalance, right? When you get off center, you're going to move into imbalance. You're going to be opposed by the opposite. And that's what this thing is. There's always someone on one side and someone on the other side. There's liberal, Labor. For everyone around the world, it's like the Democrat, Republican. There's now in Australia, there's the yes and the no. It's the same type of thing as again and again and again, because that's the way in which they can administer control. They create imbalance, and then they come through with the authority to create control of that imbalance. It's like, find your center, find your balance, right? And evoke your pure warrior energy, that undiluted dynamic will, that force of will. This is how we change the world, is realize that you're here to change the world. You're not here for waiting for the world to change. You have to be that change. Now is the time that we need to be that change. Let's look at the new moon. Strike that, reverse. Let's look at the full moon. The full moon in Aries. So let's go to where the full moon is. So it's happening Friday night. So that'll be good. If you've got clear skies, you should see a nice big full moon. It's apparently another super moon, which means it's in close proximity to the Earth. It really has very minimal bearing on the astrological energetic release of this. It might be felt a little bit more powerfully. It's an Aries full moon at 6 degrees of Aries. Aries, 6 degrees, we're looking at the first decan of Aries. It's a cardinal sign. So we're looking at the card, which is the wands, because it's a fire sign, and it's the 2 of the wands. Now, it's the guy here. The 2 suggests a balance, right? Even though we're at the beginning of this Aries decan, we're looking at the 2s to represent the first decan. And the 2 is balanced force, balanced will. What does that give you? Well, look at this guy. He's got one hand on his staff and one hand, or the world in his hand. The world in his hand. When you become balanced, when you evoke your willpower, right? Your warrior, the fighting energy, your your pure desire of, soul expression. You have the world in your hands. It's almost like you get to create a new world. And we are realizing that the awakening process in humanity is the realization on a deep level that we have the power to change the world. That's why they're doing what they're doing, to create more control, digital identification, chipped, tracked through your biometrics, digital currencies. All of those is to control you, right? They want to control you. They don't want you liberated and free, because that goes counter to their program. This period we're moving into is starting the awakening, right? If we were looking at now, we would look like the Force Awakens in Star Wars. The Force, Aries quality, right? Aries is infantile willpower. Infantile. Think of a child's will. They don't have any sort of what's that word? They don't self-limit, they don't govern themselves, they don't restrict themselves, they just express purely, right? So this quality of this Aries embodiment of this energy is coming through is the ability to express yourself purely and freely, the undiluted willpower, right? The infantile, childlike will. It's will at its balanced force. And then you get the world in your hand. What are we going to do with this? Right? What are you going to do to empower yourself with this will energy? These are the questions to ask yourself as we move forward, as the collective moves forward, because we are moving to a period again of great change. So, and again, you are that change. The way in which this system is going to break down is not because we're going to break it down. It's not because we're going to pull it down, or we're going to march in the streets or sign a petition. The way in which this system comes down is the realization of the power and will that you have to create your own world on your terms. And when you become that, and you become an imbalanced force and step into your own authority, you reshape this world. When every little change you make inside you is a ripple effect of the change of the world around the outside of you. Remember that. Every little change, every bit of refinement, every balancing that you do within you is creating it in this world. We're all now on the hangover of COVID and the awakening process that happened as a result. For a vast majority of people, we're realizing that on a very physical level. We're fucking coming back to our balance. When we come into balance, we're in power, right? Think about that. They're creating constant imbalance and polarization to keep us out of our power. The power comes when the uniting of the opposites. The balanced force is where the power, in the moment, in you, realizing this on a deep level. This is this full moon, and it's going to trigger and activate that as we move forward for the next 6 months at least. Now, the unaware person with this energy, there might be blow-ups, there might be impulsive outbursts of, anger, aggression, conflict, combativeness. And in the dynamics of relationships, if we look at Venus, she's ruling the sun, she's in the sun sign, there's mutual reception between the sun and Venus. So they're communicating well. But Venus is directly squaring Uranus. So there is this tension within the dynamics of things of value and relationships. This tension for what? Freedom, liberation, the unstucker. Sorry, excuse me, I itch my eye. Uranus energy is the liberator of stuck energy. In the context of relationships, this might mean that the Aries new full moon is going to activate a lot of potential blow-ups within dynamics of relationship, where things are needing to change and the people are not wanting to participate in the process of change. Okay, so remember the qualities of Venus and Libra is compromise. is collaboration, is to look at things from other points of view, to see life from the way that others see it, and to judge the impact that your actions and behaviors have on the world around you and the people around you. So if you want to take full personal responsibility at the moment for the process of change, take ownership of the imbalance that's happening within the relationship where there is upheaval or change, and don't project that onto another and gaslight the other, because it's going to create a lot of conflict. Now, Uranus is retrograding from 22 or 23 degrees back to 19, and then we'll move forward in the new year. And that really brings in, and I've mentioned this before, but Taurians born between the 10th and 14th of May, you're having Uranus conjunct your sun. This is a liberation of the image of yourself and the role you're playing in your life, your personal desires, your will. It's being liberated, and you're being called in to make some changes in that area. If it's Leo, right? So if you have a sun at Leo, 11 to 15 degree, 11 to the 15th of August in particular, then this change is coming about because something is happening outside of your control, which is causing you to make some changes to the way you see yourself, the role you play in your life. It's not necessarily directly your fault. You can't lay blame, but it's happening either way anyway. So you're integrating change from the concept of something outside of yourself. If you're a Scorpio born between the 12th and 16th of November, then you're having Uranus opposite your sun. So you're going to feel directly opposed by this need for change, this upheaval, this wanting to break free. And you may have a significant decision to make, because oppositions create turning points where you can go the same way or a different way. My suggestion would be to get grounded and centered and pick the liberating pathway. May be challenging and may be difficult, but it's going to lead to more liberation and freedom for you and the person involved. And then the other people feeling this from the square are the Aquarians born between the 8th and 12th of February, because Uranus is squaring your sun. And this is going to impact you a similar way to the Leos. Something's happening outside of you. It's causing this change. And you're needing to really look at your personal will, your self-image, and the role you're playing in your life, and how that's being challenged, at least, to change. Now, also, if you have personal planets at those fixed degrees of the fixed signs, so Taurus between 19 23 degrees, anything there, anything in opposite Scorpio 19 to 23 degrees, or Leo or Aquarius 19 to 23 degrees, then Uranus is really going to impact on that planetary energy and the houses that it rules. If you want more specific details on that in your own personal chart, then you can always check in for a birth chart reading. Now, there's a couple more things I want to do. It's a really short video this time because I'm very, very busy. I've got a lot on. I'm doing a lot of regression work at the moment. I reckon I've done maybe a dozen regressions in the last week, and they're so deep, so profound, so many changes coming through from people's past life experiences and the contact with their subconscious. So I'm going to do a separate video on some of the stuff that's come through in relation to how it really reinforces what's happening astrologically for us, especially over the next 6 to 8 months, and over the next sort of 3 or so years. But the full moon, the sun is going to be on the midpoint between Mercury and Mars. Okay, so the moon is going to be opposite the midpoint of Mercury and Mars. Mercury is communication. Mercury is perception, ideas. Mercury is the mind, and Mars is the will. It's combative, it's direct. So the midpoint between Mercury and Mars can be like, bright ideas, really sudden flashes of like shifts in perspective and awareness, changes to the way we see things. It could be argumentation. It could be imbalance. It could be conflict in relation to matters of communication or the way you see things. So again, this sort of reinforces the idea that there's the potential with this full moon that there may be like an outburst of fiery energy creating sort of conflict within communications of relationships. Again, be the bigger person, understanding that this energy is there and it's integrating. It's like, okay, am I channeling this? Am I using it? Am I projecting this onto others? Am I blaming or gaslighting the situation I'm in or the person I'm relating to as the cause of my problems? Remember that your relationships are a direct mirror, if you like, or reflection of your relationship with yourself. If you're out of balance and you're not in wholeness, you're going to have that feeling of imbalance reinforced within your key dynamics of your relationships, which may cause a little bit of tense energy. Now, it's an unaspected moon, which means that there's no, between the sun and moon, there's no major aspects to them. So that can be good in the sense that it might be a short burst of energy in releasing of that. It might not have the impact on like the world stage. However, it can mean that it's very acute and it can be very personal as well. So it might be like unexpected blow-ups or releasing of this fiery energy for individuals, as so to speak. So be very mindful of that. Always be a good judge of self, right? Which is Libra, the judge. Right. Always be a good judge of yourself, and bring that place of balance in. So that is my update. That's my update on the full moon in Aries. So moving forward with Uranus energy going to be starting to come through more and more and more, you're going to see a lot of changes in the outer world, sudden, unexpected things coming to light, revelations, upheaval. So Uranus is still in Taurus as well. We may see some unexpected shifts with regards to volcanic action and seismic action and things like that. So always remain a little bit aware. But on a personal level, when we think about how these energies are impacting us and integrating through our lived experiences, everything's an inner game, right? So all changes in the outer world are a reflection of the changes that we are going through internally. This world has conditioned you, right, to become off your center and to be disconnected from your source and from this earth and disconnected from one another. And when you're off your center and you're disconnected, you're easily controlled and manipulated. You're directed and herded just like sheep. The awakening of this Uranus energy coming through now is the awakening of your consciousness, becoming more self-aware, starting to question your belief system and the world around you, and starting to break your patterning and your conditioning and really see how these things and energetics work. And they don't want that. They don't want an awakened humanity. They do not want that at all costs. That's what the last 3 years are about. That's what the next 3 years are going to be about. They move us through economic upheaval, climate upheaval, potential conflict, right? They're all designed to disempower the people, keep them distracted, keep them disconnected, imbalanced, keep them, separated and divided. So that's their game. And you know how to play their game now. You call back in your power. Call back in your will. Become balanced internally, right? The more balanced you are, the more at peace you are, the more the world is going to reflect that. And what is going to happen is they're going to look more and more ridiculous and crazy as they go to extreme attempts to maintain control through tyrannical type things. So all you got to do is stay in your center and stay in your power and do not consent. Do not consent to that to becoming part of your lived experience or your reality. Now, if it's overwhelming you and it's getting too much and you don't know what's going to happen, it's going to be anxious and it's always, this is Uranian energy creating upheaval, right? So don't buy into that. Disconnect, go out into nature, get into the ocean, get onto the earth. Go and look at a cow eating grass in the paddock. Do you think he really gives a shit about what they're telling you what's going to happen next and if it's going to happen and when it's going to happen? It's a bit more like that, which is grounded, right? The cow is Taurus. Taurus is fixed earth. Be grounded. Be grounded in who you are. Be grounded in your truth. Be grounded in your authenticity. Be grounded in your awareness. You see the game, right? I don't play that game. I don't play that game. You need to be that way, steadfast. That's my Uranus update. That's my Aries full moon. Like I said, I'm extremely busy, lots going on. If you wanted to get a regression and astrology reading, connect. If you're in Melbourne, you want to come along to a live session, I'm going to be doing a forecast into 2024 in the next 3 years, specifically looking at the age of Aquarius and the planetary movements of Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, and what we can expect as we integrate. Now, I did one of these talks at the end of 2019, and in Melbourne, it was live. And a lot of people that attended that reached out to me early in 2020 and were like, what the fuck, man? You were saying like all this stuff's happening? And I'm like, yeah, well, that's the clock. That's the cosmic clock. That's the time. So if you're in Melbourne, it's going to be on the 14th of October, Saturday night, 6 to 8 p.m. in Glen Iris. There's about 7 tickets left. I'll put some details in the notes below. Otherwise, you can find on my website or on my social medias. Everyone else, enjoy the full moon. Peace out as always. Yeah.